Lights, camera, and action. So often is this a prelude to scripts that are synonymous with film. The aftermath are acts that bring to life not only words, but also characters. From America's Hollywood to India's Bollywood, Nigeria's Nollywood to Kenya's Riverwood. The film industry globally is termed as the next frontier. So in Newsroom, we put the media on haters and discuss the state of film in Kenya. A very good morning. Many thanks for making time for us and welcome to Newsroom. I am Abubakar Abdullahi. We have a lot more than the film that we are covering. Our reporters will be joining us shortly to update us on the stories that they are following up. But first, let me introduce my guests who are already in studio. Mildred Sakina and Martin Kigondu. Ladies and gentlemen, many thanks for making time for us this morning.
Thank you.
You guys are more passionate in film than I am, but we'll have this discussion nonetheless.
Okay.
Since the first image of the country was captured on tape in 1909 by Cherry Keaton, a reference that is largely made up to when talking of film, a wildlife photographer who filmed the American president who was visiting the country, the history of film in Kenya has rather been captured in somewhat some way by a foreign hand. Will I be correct to sum it up as though there is a picture that is not really ours?
Well, I wouldn't say that it's not really ours. Maybe I'd say that it's not as conclusive. I feel like when people think of Kenya, they think of Masai Mara, they think of Masai, and we are much more than that. And I think it's upon us as Kenyan filmmakers, as Kenyan storytellers, to give that view to the world, so that you know, for some reason, that's all that they know, that's all they're conditioned to see. So I think it's our responsibility to show them a different side of who we are.
Martin, is it a case of a local narrative told through foreign lens many a times?
Yes, many a times I would say yes. There's this quote that says, I've actually just thought about it the moment you asked that, about the story of the hunt glorifying the hunter, because it's never told from the lion's point of view. So it's the same with ours. As long as we have more of people who are not us telling our stories, as much as they're guiding us through the storytelling, we'll always not have our story fully told. Yeah, so I do agree to some level.
When often you talk of film, there's the narrative as well of our film, what is ours? What really is ours in that context?
Sure.
How do you describe a Kenyan film, if at all it does exist?
That's an interesting question. A film is a film, right?
Yes.
I think the country of origin is what gives it that the feel. I think a story is a story, a film is a film. But I guess it's like the same discussion of what's the Kenyan sound when it comes to music. What would you first hear and see, oh, that's Kenyan. I don't know if we've found that yet, now that I think about it. And I don't know that it's a bad thing, but it might not also be a good thing. That's what I'll say.
Martin, the same question?
Same question. I'd say I'd probably look at it from an angle of copyright, yeah? So you own any intellectual property the moment you put it down, yeah? The moment you put it down in terms of if it's a poem, the moment you write it, if it's an idea, the moment you table it, write it down, put it in something. So when it comes to filmmaking, I think a film is ours if we own a bigger percentage of it. Yeah, this is in terms of probably not have all Kenyan production companies on it, but at least have the ones behind the story and the ones, even if we're not funding it, at the end of the day, we are the ones owning it. At least more than 51%.
I asked that question at the backdrop of if we are to judge relatively other established film industries, be it Hollywood, you'll find fast-moving cars. There's that classiness of being in the US. You come to the Bollywood, you find love. Get to Nollywood, oh God, the king is there. I'm asking that because they often, many a times, filmmakers like you are being pointed to as people who are failing to give what really a Kenyan story should be. It could be fair, it could be unfair.
Okay, well, I'll definitely react to that. I would say any film industry, for it to definitely grow and be good, has to have a story from where the stories come from and from whom the stories come from. So storytelling in Kenya can be told on so many platforms. I major majorly in theater, and from the theatrical perspective, we now have more Kenyan stories, and that only means that can be translated into film. So is it possible? Yes. Are we doing the most we could? Not the most we could, but we are really trying. It's only that in the environment that we are in, politically and in every other way, in terms of governance, we are not allowed to be as loud about our stories. Or, you know, the moment we want to say something, we are told, oh, this may be this is definitely not us, but we are the ones telling the story. So a lot is going on there.
Yeah.
And a person who, the creatives like you have largely, I won't say you in particular, but creatives have blamed for curtailing their own creativity, was supposed to be on the show. Unfortunately, he's not coming today. I hope he will tomorrow. But nonetheless, when we talk of the Kenyan story, if then there is a Kenyan story, is it creatives in the film industry alone who are supposed to tell that story? Because many a times fingers are pointed to you guys.
So, as I've thought about it more, I think it's a larger challenge. I'm not going to call it a problem. What are our cultural markers? You see, like how you mentioned, like Bollywood, you associate it with a lot of dancing, a lot of color, flourish. Nigerians, they are very rooted in their tradition and their culture. I'd say Hollywood is a mix of very many things. And of course, there's also not just Bollywood. I think also the Far East, China, those countries also have, like, you know, when you think of martial arts, that's what you think of. But when you think of Kenya, it's not just a film issue. Even if I go back to music, even if I go back to fashion, we never found our national dress. So if it's a matter of what's the Kenyan story, what does it mean to be Kenyan then? I think it's a bigger problem, and not just on the filmmakers to kind of define that. Yeah.
Martin?
I would say, as a Kenyan, I'm happy to be one, first of all, and we are a very interesting bunch. We are probably more of everything else than we are Kenyan.
Yes.
Because the question is, what is Kenyan?
Yeah.
So maybe that's what we actually are. Being Kenyan is being a bit of everything. Yeah? Because unlike maybe other African nations, the amount of exposure to the rest of the world is quite big here. Yeah, so we have a bit of being American, we have a bit of being a Brit, we have a bit of being Tanzanian, because of everything that we've been consuming and everything that we are still consuming. So is it a bad thing? I really don't think so. I think it's culture. Culture is not a traditional women in brown attires, and we say that's Kikuyu, so that is tradition, not culture. Culture is always moving forward. What is our culture? Our culture is reggae and sagging and, you know, online dating, because culture is ever moving. So if we are to tell our stories, then yes, we'll feed a lot from culture, which is ever moving, particularly in Kenya, particularly with everything we are feeding on. We can't really put a finger and say, this is it. We are those guys who just speak this way. In fact, we are probably among the only 5 or so countries in Africa who don't have an accent. You know, the moment I say, oh, you know that's Nigeria. Yeah, the moment I speak in a way, you'll say, oh, that's South African.
Yeah.
So what's sorry for that, what's the Kenyan accent? We also don't have that. We are a mix of everything, because we are a lot of people in a time where we consume a lot of things.
And is this mixture of almost everything, is this cocktail of, be it ideas or what, so a good thing?
I don't think it should be a bad thing.
I think, because if I'm also just to think about it, South Africa is also very cosmopolitan, but you can tell when the moment that you switch on any content, their series, their movies, you can tell this is South African. So I think the disadvantage here also is, like what he says, what we consume, broadcasters. So why, for example, would you opt to buy Mexican content, Chinese content, Indian, Russian, and you know, display that to people and then still come back and say, no, you're not being Kenyan enough. Why aren't you buying our content? Because it's cheaper.
Probably yours is too expensive to buy.
Is it expensive?
Probably.
You want, yeah. Well, you'd rather have a rerun like for a show that was what 3 years ago, and then you blame us for no, we want good Kenyan content, but then you give a budget that is this small, and you want the quality to be the type that can air on Mnet. We are competing with the world, but you don't want to invest. So I'd also put the onus on the broadcasters. Maybe you should stop showing us all of this foreign content, and then we'll actually have room and space to think about who we really are.
You talk of people who we need to show this content. That will fall under the audience. I'm asking other audience as well, from your own individual assessment, are they ready for Kenyan produced content?
Definitely. We have a lot of success stories. We'd only have to, from our side as filmmakers, understand that at times when we try to please everyone, we won't actually please anyone. If everyone is your audience, then no one is your audience. Yeah. So it's for us to then decide this is our niche. We can't get everyone, but at least we can get the ones who want a laugh. At least we can get the ones who enjoy thrillers and dramas. So it's upon us to now decide, this is what you're excited about. How about share it? I assure you, if you're 100 of you and you're at least one there who enjoys something, when you're 1,000 of you, at least 10 of you will. Nairobi has more than 5 million. At least if in every 100 people we have one who enjoys a local show, then at least 1% of their million will enjoy that. And that's only Nairobi. The rest of Kenya is also out there watching, and these guys watch that, especially now when we have TV content which is in the local languages. Yeah, a lot of people are consuming and enjoying. So if we are to ever package this into now films and actually sell them as features or shorts or in that format, then I'm sure these people will still enjoy that. Yeah.
We talked of Hollywood, Nollywood, Bollywood. Let's come to Riverwood. When you talk of film in America, what comes into your mind is Hollywood. Talk of film in Nigeria, what comes into your mind is Nollywood. Talk of film in Kenya, you'll see as though there is a segregation. There is Riverwood, there is other names, other sects. Machawood, someone is telling me on my ear. Do we lack then one unifying formity?
I really truly believe that is a major challenge that we have, and it's because we are trying to find our footing, and in finding your footing there's growing pains. For me, first of all, when I think of Riverwood, River Road. So for me, it's like, I wouldn't, for me as a filmmaker, I wouldn't classify my work as that, because I feel like, first of all, it's very confining. And second of all, when I think of content that's made in River Road, there's a certain group of people, a certain niche of people that might not be my target audience. So first of all, I think it's just coming together and figuring out this is what we are about, this is what we want to say. Of course, that coming together is I'll just call it growing pains.
For instance, Riverwood, an organization which brings together 200 local filmmakers to market and sell their work collectively. It was established in 2011 and has over 200 film producers. Surely we have more than 200 film producers in Kenya, don't we, Martin? Yeah,
we certainly do. I would also use that interjection to maybe segue into what you'd asked earlier. The unifying thing, I do agree, I totally agree with what she said. The moment we come together, we'll definitely go forward stronger. My question is, are we all proud of maybe the tag that we've been given? Is this Riverwood or any other thing? It's different for Hollywood, definitely. That is what comes to mind when you think of America, but there are lots of independent filmmakers, you know, indies that make lots of money, and the moment you watch it, you don't think, psh, that is Hollywood. You think, yes, that is American, but Hollywood is not the first thing that comes to mind. Same to Nigeria. So very recently, I got a chance to attend the NBO Film Festival. I went to it the first around 2 years back, 2 or 3 years back, when it was first launched. And I remember in the cinema hall, I don't remember which movie I was watching, but we were around 3, 4, 5 of us. A month ago, when I went there, we were a little more, probably because of the marketing. But at least in there, they made sure they had at least 2 or 3 days of interacting with filmmakers from South Africa and also Kenya. And sitting with the Nigerians who are also there, they were telling us, we only know of Nollywood, but there's also, I can't remember what they called it.
There's the Uganda.
There are other fractions in the
Yes,
film
even
industry.
in Nollywood,
Yes.
yeah, where instead of now going to the cinemas, now they go to the football pitches and they do films that are quite cheap to go to, and people are flocking there, and huge audiences are going, and they are making a lot of money, in fact. So, do we all have to stand as Riverwood? I do not think so. Is it a good thing that the name is there and there is a group that identifies themselves in that way? Yes, it's a good thing, but it shouldn't be the only thing. Those are my thoughts.
Content is a very expensive field, be it in TV or in film. Why do you think that the broadcasters, whom you alluded to a little bit earlier, are failing to appreciate locally made content by buying them rather than playing 3, 4, 5 years of Mexican content?
And this is the thing that I don't understand. And it is not that the money is not there. It is their priorities. When you think about all the people that are advertising and you do the math, I think it's this notion that local content is somehow inferior. So it also plays out in the negotiations that you have in the boardroom, in the budgets that are given, and also in the final output. So you get what you paid for, right? So if you give X amount, this X amount can only hire a certain caliber of writers, actors, camera people, and everything else. So I really think it's a mindset that needs to change. If they took that money that they are using to buy content from elsewhere and channel it here, I think they'll experience something that they've never seen before, because there's great content out there. And you remember Mali, that was on Nation, Briefcase Inc., that was on KTN. All of these shows were locally produced. Why can't we just, replicate that formula? Because it's worked and people were tuning in and the ratings were going up. So I think it's a mindset that needs to change.
When you talk of the audience, more than just the broadcasters who you have talked of, there is the question of cinema halls. Nairobi and its environments has an approximate of 9 to 10 cinema halls. But it's not every day that you see a Kenyan movie being flooded there. In comparison to any other foreign movie that comes. Where does this problem arise from? As a filmmaker, and be as independent as you can answering that.
As a member of the audience, you
Yes.
know, because we also, I guess by the time you're thinking of becoming a filmmaker, or by the time you're finding yourself as one, you're probably a fan all along, with or without knowing it. So cinema halls. For my generation to find cinema halls here, it means at some point, people were going to cinema halls. Otherwise, there would never have been any reason to build these halls. Now that going to the cinemas is not yet a thing around here, doesn't mean it couldn't be. You know, when we have Avengers or any other thing attached to that, we have people going there. I remember, it was one of those movies. I'll call it one of those, not as a critic, but just as a person who doesn't watch as much of the Avengers and the rest. But I remember there was one of those showing at the same time Supermodo was showing. And I went to Prestige. So this is me lining up for my ticket, and we are like 5 of us. Then the Avengers or whoever else was showing,
area was flooded.
Then you'd ask them, maybe someone would even ask you for directions, and you'd be, Supermodo is here. And no, not Supermodo, I want that. You know, so that's sort of a cult thing. A movie that gets, a following, a huge following, is a good thing because they've been here for years. So even us, we are yet to get there. Are we on our way there? Yes, we are. Will we get there?
Is it because one end attracts and appreciate content that is of quality in comparison to another?
No, we have good quality. We have good quality. In fact, still from the festival, I learned that a lot of guys from the rest of Africa are picking our cinematographers, are picking a lot of our crew guys to go there and help that out, because as Kenyans we've found a way of putting all this together. So it's only a thing about mass popularity, people liking this. Lion King, I'm sure, will be flooded. Yeah, the next Kenyan film hopefully will be flooded, but Lion King comes with...
Hopefully, you're certain on one end, you're not on the other.
Not that I would like to have full houses, but I know it can't happen in a week. I know it's a thing of, you know, bit by bit, step by
I think
step.
it's
Fair enough,
also...
Mildred, the
Yes.
audience preference
Yeah.
of one over another,
Yeah.
and not just a good film,
Yeah.
but a good genre,
Yeah.
has been a question of concern, hasn't it? To a filmmaker, does that concern you?
Audience, please rephrase the question again.
The question is,
Yeah.
we have an American movie or
Yeah.
even an Indian movie,
Yeah,
the cinemas are full.
yeah,
You have a Kenyan film,
yeah.
the cinemas are opposite of that.
Yeah. So first of all, there's a question that you'd asked him. First of all, for a filmmaker, just to get the money to put together the film is a struggle. When you go into the cinema halls, that's also a different conversation that you're having. There's money that needs to also be put down there. And for it to run for an extended period of time, for it to make financial sense, you know, there's the marketing and distribution bit, which I think we still haven't figured out. Now, as for the audience, I think we've made this also a blanket statement. Kenyans love comedy. Kenyans love humor. So it has to be funny or it won't make sense. But, for example, Supermodel was not comedy. But I think also the marketing that they did around that tended to attract a lot of, you know, a lot of interested people. My favorite Kenyan, like not even Kenyan, favorite movie of all time, Nairobi Half-Life, was not a comedy. But I think that is one of the success stories that we can tell and see, okay, so we want to laugh, but we also want to experience the drama of going through real life with someone. There's a genre for, I think we are not just all one thing. There's something for everyone. And I know there was a time, there was a Kenyan horror film that was also banned. And yet there were people who would have really wanted to see it. So I don't think that, I don't think that our audience is so small-minded that they can only consume one thing. If we are all Netflix, Showmax, all of those, and we are watching different kinds of shows, then it does show that the Kenyan audience likes different things.
Martin, the very caption of this discussion is the state of the film industry in Kenya.
Yeah.
If one was to ask you to describe the state of the film industry in Kenya, how will you respond?
I would say we still have a long way to go. We're there. As filmmakers, we exist. As an audience who enjoys film, we exist. As people who make money out of the industry, a small percentage exists. So is the film industry doing okay? I'd say we're slightly below a C, which means we are in class, yeah? Which means we are coming for the lessons. Our attendance sheets show that we are here. Are we at an A? We'll get there. Quality-wise, we are doing better than a lot of countries. As an audience, just like she said, intellectually, we are ready to consume a lot. So for the film industry, yes, we are doing okay, but we could do so much better.
Mildred, the same question, how will you respond to it?
I think, like he said, growing pains, at least we are visible. At least now we can say, okay, these are filmmakers that we can mention. These are some Kenyan films, but there's a lot more work to be done. And mine is not just for, you know, outside audience. It's also inside looking in. Producers, actors, directors, there's a lot of work that needs to be done on the inside so that the outside starts to translate to, oh, okay, these are people worth paying attention to. So yeah, I think we are visible, but there's a lot of work that can still be done.
When one talks of tourism, what often comes into your mind is destinations. Masai Mara, be it at the coast, Watamu, wherever.
Yeah.
Just mentioned Watamu because seemingly it's my favorite place. Those destinations, can they be of essence and significance to filmmakers like you?
Definitely, definitely. I mean, we don't even have to go as far. Even in Nairobi, we have really beautiful places. So yes, there'd be nice backdrops to tell our stories on. And there are stories from there, like Subira was, I would say Subira, for me, is one of the products that we we are really proud of. Not that I was part of it, but as an audience sitting there watching it, I was like, oh, we have a long way to go, but we're doing okay because of such places. So yes, they could be really nice backdrops for telling our stories. Now, everything that is cluttered around how to get such a space is now the challenge. So your question.
And what do you mean by everything that is cluttered around that?
Well,
if these are nice places to go and film at, what are the challenges of getting there?
oh, it's pretty expensive. It's pretty expensive.
Yeah. Just to get something like permits,
Yeah.
even access, who owns that space? And that's also another thing that I take issue with. When you mention these nice destination places, you'll most likely find that at the top is not, say, a Kenyan resident. You see, so it's that challenge of, first of all, I feel being treated like a second-class citizen in your own country. Yet, like, this is where I live. This is where I come from. So it's access. It is expensive, you know, getting permits and all of that. And that's the reason why they choose to shoot Kenyan locations in South Africa. It's a much bigger problem, and I literally don't understand, because that is a cash cow that could make us money, that could get our names out there, and yet there are no tax rebates, there are no incentives, and we have perfect prime space.
I remember 2 weeks ago when Tourism CS was present at the reopening, if not even a week ago, when Tourism CS Najib Balala was present during the reopening of Dusit D2. He urged filmmakers to use Kenyan destinations in making film. The expense you're talking of seemingly seems as though he was hypocritical.
Definitely. Well, we couldn't circle it on him.
Yeah.
We just
The ministry, not the person, the ministry.
Yeah, definitely.
There's often the push of Kenyan filmmakers, showcase Kenya, showcase the beauty of it.
And then they're not providing support for us to showcase that.
And what does this support entail? Probably he's watching and he could listen.
Making permits a little easier to get around. For instance, Machawod. Yeah, that's a whole idea by itself. Maybe we could improve on a few things there, but Machawod, the whole idea of welcome to Machakos, let's shoot here for this duration. You have access to any part of this county. Same to Narok Film Festival, I think. So if we had more of those, then we'd go everywhere where you don't have to start thinking, I want to go to this place, but who do I see? Where do I see? When you're told this is who you see, you look at the amount they are charging you to film there. You're like, this is half of my budget already. So it doesn't make sense. So is it hypocritical of the ministry? I would say yes. Yes, it is. It's like a mother telling a child, you can be healthier, yet the mother is not providing healthy food, you know? I think
that's a great example. So just, you know, also this what is it, KFCB, KFC, wonderful. It's the same thing of, okay, so you want us to use these locations. Are you going to, for example, are you going to subsidize something? Are you going to provide us with transport? Are you going to put us up somewhere where at least we can make the most of the little money that we have? Hey, why not have a film fund? Can we go and access? Can you give us like something so that we can actually go and shoot? Provide the machinery and the structures for us to be able to do that. And don't make it so hard to access that.
Talking of the landscapes and destinations, Kenya was at a time favorite for foreign filmmakers.
Yes.
Currently, seemingly, they are channeling their effort and their rerouting to South Africa.
Yes.
Why do you think is the case?
Same thing. Like the taxation is heavy on them. Yeah, the permits could be easier. You know, all these governance issues that are normally not handled by even filmmakers. So the moment you find them there, they have no idea what you're bringing here. So had we maybe we'd have more of filmmakers in there, or maybe policies that favor these foreigners coming here. For instance, The Boy Who Harnessed the Wind. Wonderful film. Like I sat there in the cinema hall, 3 minutes in, I saw a familiar face. I didn't even know we had Kenyans in there. I did not know. So I sat there, 3 minutes in, I see a face I know, and another face. I was like, is this a Kenyan film? No, it wasn't. It was shot in Malawi. But then researching on it, I then come to find out that they'd actually even thought of shooting it here. So it's back to all this. It could be easier.
Yeah.
Whereas the Westgate Mall shopping attack story is being acted in South Africa.
Yeah, yeah. I remember doing a story on that and just being absolutely shocked. Like now our story is being, taken elsewhere, and no one is even shocked. No one is even worried. No one did anything about it. And honestly, I do wonder whether the people who are telling us, promote Kenyan content really understand how it looks when a story is being shot by foreigners in a foreign country and it's our story. And it's not that we don't have everything that we need to do it here, we do. But it's the bureaucracies, it's the just lack of understanding and having people, filmmakers or film players who can actually, push our stories forward. So that's sad. That's very unfortunate.
And on that sad note, seemingly from you, we'll have to take a short commercial break here on Newsroom. We'll be back with this discussion and much more after this break.
Visa vingi vya ukosefu wa kazi vimewalazimu watu wengi kujitosa katika hustle mbalimbali. Hapa katika Hustle Mashinani tunatambua bidii yako, ubunifu wako na kuikubali kazi yako.
Nafanya hustle ya kuuza chapati na maybe weekends huwa na hustle na kushuka watu nywele.
Hudi ni neighbor wangu. Hata hiyo kazi anafanya inamsaidia kulipa nyumba.
Ungana nami Magdalene Wanjiko kila siku ya Jumamosi saa 2:30 hapa TV47, macho na sauti yetu.
We are talking of a matter that is related to the media nonetheless. Film, the state of film in Kenya, and my guest to my immediate right, Mildred Sakina and Martin Kigondu. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for making time for us. And remember, you can be part of this discussion. Leave us a comment. You can call in on the number that will shortly as well appear on your screen. Let's get back to this discussion. Martin, when we talk of film, people assume as though one can easily stand in front of a camera, say their words, and then that is being produced. But similarly, there is a chain in filmmaking. In a nutshell, can you explain to us what the filmmaking chain contains?
First of all, I'd like to say that the whole filmmaking process can have as many people attached to jobs as possible, like on every level, from the pre-production to the actual production to the post-production. So I'll definitely now divide them.
And just for purpose of clarity of
Yes.
our audience who may not be familiar with these
Yeah.
words that you have used,
Yeah.
pre-production is the planning involved before the shooting?
Yes, this is the planning involved before the shooting. Now this is from scratch. I think I have something I'll work on. It could be from the director's angle. I'd like to direct something. I'd like to get a writer to put this down for me, and let's start talking. So we'll start writing scripts. We'll start going through all this. Then once we are done with that, to get into the actual production, we've now decided we are touching this director. This is a crew we'll have on board. The crew are from the camera people to cinematographers, to the sound guys, to the lights guys. Then we do the actual shooting. Now we engage the actors who are to read off the scripts that have been put together in the first step, in the pre-production. Now in the actual production, this is now mostly the actual shooting. It could be, depending on the length of the film, it could be as long as a couple of days. It could be as long as a couple of years as well. We are yet to get where, to have budgets where we could shoot for years, but normally a month, a couple of weeks.
But in practical
is good
sense,
enough.
there are films that are shot for a period of a year?
Definitely.
Yes, years.
What are you shooting for 365 days?
There was actually a film. It was called Boyhood. It was a documentary style film, and they shot, so it was basically chronicling the life of this boy from when he was 11 to around 18. And the whole cast, from the time that that boy was that age to the time that he was 18, they maintained the same cast. So you're documenting the life of this boy year after year after year, and then you put it together. So it is actually possible.
It's very possible.
And if these are the many numbers involved in the creation of one film, seemingly this looks as though it is a venture that can as well create jobs.
A lot of jobs,
Yes.
most definitely. We've only just gone into production now. We still haven't gone into post-production. We are now polishing everything. We are putting everything together, from the editing to the sound to, soundtracks and all. There are a lot of people involved. In actual production, when we are shooting, we have makeup artists, we have the actors themselves. So a lot of people can be attached. We could have a set that has at least 200 people. That is possible. Has it been done? Yes. Around here, maybe for a couple of films, yes. But this now means people are getting paid for their services. So this now requires a bigger budget. So yes, there are a lot of people involved in filmmaking. It's not just the actor you see in front of the camera. There's a lot behind all that. Yeah.
And if the numbers are as many as such, it will have a detrimental effect on the budget. And the equation often turns back. You're putting in money.
Yeah.
Is there a surety that you're going to get back the money you've put, if not even make profit?
I think now that's now the next stage that we need to get to, and maybe also it's figuring out. It's begin with the end in mind. So, like he said, pre-production should also involve figuring out, okay, so this is the money that we're putting in. How are we going to get it back? This is why films. Like Hollywood films can start marketing a movie 2 years in advance, so that you're guaranteed that there's X number of people who are going to come for the film. So you begin with the end in mind. That's the executive producer who is in charge of the money, and the producer who makes sure that, okay, the vision actually...
Mildred, hold on that thought. I understand we have a caller who is calling in. Remember, you can use the number that is on your screen. Good morning. Do you still have that person online? Oops, continue.
Yes, so I think that's the next part that we need to crack, figuring out marketing and distribution so that you do get your money back, because you hear a lot of what this film was zero budget. There's no such thing as zero budget. Even if it means all you're spending your money on is food, that is money that has been spent. So I think that here that's our next challenge. I do know, like, for example, One Fine Day, their last film, Lusala, possibly maybe did manage to make some money back of what they invested, thanks to the continuing marketing and distribution and running it again and again and again. So I think that's the next place that we need to get to, where we are thinking, okay, our audience is willing to spend this much, so how do we make sure that the film has a run that, you know, is favorable to the audience and favorable to us, so that at least, even if you're not making a loss, but at least you're breaking even, and, you know, if God wills it, you make a profit.
Fair enough. If God's will is so, you'll make a profit.
Yeah.
When then you invest as such in producing a film, and at the end of the day, the Film Classification Board comes up and says this film will not be shown in Kenya. What kind of an effect does that have on a filmmaker?
Definitely heartbreaking, you know, because any form of story is your baby. The moment you decide this is a venture you're willing to jump into. So the moment a baby is taken away from you, or the moment a baby is told you're not as beautiful as we'd expect you to be, it's definitely heartbreaking to the mother of the child. So that is definitely the feeling we get as filmmakers.
But if at all you're making this baby from the scratch, you must know this baby will operate in a certain idiom, in a certain vacuum, guided by laws, policies.
I do not think the creatives should be pushed in this. It's good to have all this because we have to, you know, there's a lot to consider. But at the end of the day, the moment you tell me I can't even think in a certain way, then you're pushing my reason to being. Because my reason to being is not questioning my ideas, is telling the story as fully and as truthfully as possible. You know, it doesn't have to be, I dare say this, it doesn't even have to be moral. Yeah, not to say that we are not putting packages that are moral. I'm just saying it doesn't have to be. You can't place a circle on creativity and say you can only go this far.
And will I be right
if
I am to sum up your idea as creatives being limitless?
Exactly, that's it.
Mildred, shouldn't we not have full stops?
I believe boundaries are important. But if you're to that situation where I've made a film and then you're telling me I can't even show it here, well, the first people that I was making it for were for people here. So it's almost like saying you are not welcome here, and it's also very. It's sad when you see the films scooping awards everywhere else and then they're not shown here. It could have the reverse effect, though. Sometimes it piques the audience's curiosity to see what was that film about. I think that's what happened with Rafiki. People fill the theaters because they're like, oh, controversial. Maybe people do like controversy, but not everybody has the same muscle that you can say Rafiki had. For some people that could mean, you know, a slow, painful death into obscurity, never to hear of them again. And that's the risk that we are running. We don't know who you're saying no to, who could be our next Oscar winner. So I definitely for boundaries are important, but we need to think bigger picture. What is this doing for our creatives? What is it doing for our industry? What does that mean in the long run? If it's about morality, listen, the shows that people are watching out here, you'd be shocked. You'd be absolutely shocked. So,
in comparison to some of the movies produced?
In comparison to some of the movies that they're banning, honestly, it's child's play. That's all I'm saying.
Definitely.
Martin, the creative industry is seen as a frontier. I think we talked earlier on about it being a perspective in creating jobs. But there is the notion of young people often in this industry, and in particular the film industry, being told, work, get the exposure, it will pay. The passion will pay someday. Whereas it doesn't necessarily paint a picture of as though it will pay.
That's a sad reality because as much as we speak of this, there is some wisdom in that as well. You sort of have to pay your dues, that's for sure. And in paying your dues, you're getting better at your craft. But does that mean that eventually you'll live off crumbs forever? Definitely not. I mean, you've probably gone to school for this, or you probably have done a lot of research attached to your end product. So if you can make money, then good for you. And the good thing about filmmaking, especially now in a state where we can use telcos, you know, the Safaricom's and the Airtel supporting YouTube ventures and, you know, platforms like that, then it means anyone who's interested in making a film only needs to get a camera. There's a camera on your phone. So if you think this is too much to do or this is too long for me to wait, well, a lot of people are making money out of just that, just from the platforms of telcos. But if you now want to polish it up as a craft, then you'd also have to understand it takes time.
And if the broadcasters are reluctant in buying content produced by filmmakers, what other options do filmmakers have in as far as selling their content is concerned?
Well, we'd have to think about content being packaged in different ways. Yeah. So the moment you mention broadcasters, then it means.
And in particular, these days being produced films.
Produced films.
Yes.
Okay. So just before I get to the produced films, I'd say other platforms definitely there. Other formats definitely there, because there's a difference between TV, serial storytelling, you know, and now produced films. Now the question is, are they willing to sit down with us and discuss all this? I think if they are and they are open to, you know, to bigger budgets, that is if they are producing, then why not? I think we could always arrange something around that.
I do know of a couple of filmmakers who've decided, but this is on them, this is a series, and then I know there's one film. So for example, Plan B was a movie that, you know, first premiered on TV, but then, like, if you go and check right now, it's almost close to 2 million views. They've so far, I think, managed to sell it now to other broadcasters, like for TV. So I think there was money made there.
And that is an alternative in revenue generation?
That's an alternative in revenue generation. There's also, you can start your own website. I know Cheruscopic Productions has the show Monica. It first aired on their site, so they tell you pay this amount to watch X amount of episodes. So people did that, and you know, it made some money. So that's also another avenue. Just decide to charge for the content on your own platform where you can regulate the money that comes in.
Fair enough. And if you are a filmmaker who is watching this, if you are someone who is passionate about the film industry, or you want to contribute to this discussion, remember our social media platforms are wide and open up for you. They'll be shortly scrolling down on your screen, and you can call in with the number on your screen. Be part of this discussion. Let's get to the question of banning. I mean, someone who was to be part of this discussion, who largely creatives as you have many a times pointed finger to, is Ezekiel Mutua, who is the CEO of the Kenya Film Classification Board. Does such a board do any harm to creatives like you? Or even good? Let's not be prophets of doom. Does it do any harm or good?
From what I understand, KFCB Classification Board, their work is to look at the content and to rate whether it is, you know, for a large audience or it's rated 18 or whatever. So I understand that that is its mandate. I do know that there are filmmakers who, you know, think he's the devil. I am not one of them. I just think that he's misunderstood. And I think also he's...
In what sense is he misunderstood?
And I think it's also him, you know how you...
Mildred, hold on that thought. I'm told we have someone who is calling in. Good morning. If you can hear me, the discussion we have in the studio is about the state of film industry in Kenya. What are your thoughts? Hello, I can hear you. Go on. Where are you calling us from? Please tell us your name and where you're calling us from. Hello, can you hear me? seem to be having a problem with that caller. Nonetheless, they can redo it again. Continue with your thought.
So, I think he's misunderstood because he is constantly speaking in a way that causes for him to be misunderstood. What I mean is this. I think from the few times that I have heard him speak, it's very almost often abrasive and almost like this is the way or take the highway, while we could actually work together to come up with something that works for both of us. I do think also, and my problem, rather my challenge with the people who are in these offices is that they're talking as if, you know, they're all the way there and us, we're all the way here, and like you people don't understand. It feels like, and I remember attending a meeting where there was meant to be that kind of dialogue. It really did feel like creatives were being talked down to as opposed to being talked with. So and
what often causes that disconnect, that they're talking down to creatives,
I think they think, you know, we are just people who maybe are on drugs all day and just come up with random ideas, and, you know, we are not interested in making money, as we just want to live life. But some of us like me have actually, you know, studied some of these things. I've done lots of internships, I've been on lots of sets, and I've been doing this for 10 years, film and theater. So I think that mindset also needs to change. Creatives are not dumb, they're not stupid, they're not short-sighted. They do know what they want, but also on our end, we need to be able to articulate that in a way that is understood.
Fair enough. Martin, do you also read a disconnect between the players such as you and the regulator?
Yeah, definitely. And it all comes down to what she said. They're being talked down on. The thing is, you could have a board that has a couple of members.
Hold on that thought. I understand we also have another caller who is on phone. Good morning. Kindly tell us your name and where you're watching us from.
Hello?
Hello, I can hear you. Kindly tell us your name and where you're watching us from. We seem to have lost that caller as well. And just in case you are interested in being part of this discussion, kindly remember to tune down your TV so that you be part of this discussion. Continue.
Yes, I was saying you could have a board. For instance, if the three of us and maybe 2, 3, 4, 5 other people were to sit on this board, this figurative board here, would then have a voice of the board through probably Mildred. Yeah. Now, if Mildred seems to constantly be pushing what could be interpreted as a personal agenda, or maybe, like she said, you're a bit abrasive about it, then you definitely represent the whole board in bad light. Then again, if we had someone sit in the same position and they've been in the film industry, particularly as a filmmaker, then perhaps they would understand us better, you know? And there are lots of people who could sit there. Same to many other cultural and artistic spaces that are being run. We have so many people among us as artists who've been practicing for the longest time who could sit on these boards, especially because they are smart enough and they do understand both sides.
Martin, many a times the genesis of this aggressiveness that you talked of is that he plus the board advocates for operating within the idiom that is guided within the Kenyan culture. That let's conform to what this is a norm by society. And as a creative, you seemingly don't agree with that? You don't want to conform to anything?
We can, definitely you'd conform to the law of the land, that is for sure. That is, you know.
And on question of morality?
On morality and yeah, morality is very, that's a very, if we ever decide, that's thin ice we are walking on, you know, because in 10 years time, maybe being a person who confesses their trust in a higher being in the name of God wouldn't be considered moral. Yeah, but I'm just saying, what if that is what 50 years or later holds for us? Then will it mean that anyone who speaks in with any religious connotation will have gone against the law? Maybe it will have. All I'm saying is the moment we start looking
that
at
may
things,
fluctuate. That may fluctuate. In 10 years, that may change. In
Yes.
10 years, what won't change is if there is nudity somewhere, that still remains to be nudity.
Definitely, and that's their job. Then they'll classify and say this film shouldn't be watched by people below this age, you know, or it's about classifying, you know.
Yeah,
Tell
I
us,
see.
and even because at the NBO Film Fest, they brought the team that made Rafiki, and I wanted to sit in that audience and listen, and I listened to everything that they went through, and truthfully, honestly speaking, I do think there's a lot of double speak from these offices that are supposed to be regulating or speaking on behalf of the filmmakers. And I also think the KFC, not even KFCB, the Film Commission can do better to you know, to support us more. It's like NAT and TSC, you know. TSC will always have their stand, but NAT is always saying, no, this is too much. No, kindly regulate this. So we still need an advocate who's as strong as they are now that they do not want to sit on the same tables with us and discuss about this. Willing to adjust. You know, at times you can't talk to someone only wanting them to go by your way. We are very ready to work within the law, but when it comes to issues like morality and maybe that's even just generalizing it. There are so many spheres where you can't dictate when where a creative is to get to. I guess I'll say that for now. Otherwise, I'd get
Fair enough. You talk of double speak. Is that partly because there was an allegation that the script of Rafiki was initially approved by the board? Let me not put words into your mouth. If
Yes,
that was the
thank
double
you.
speak.
Thank you. I did sit in that audience when the Wanuri was sharing about the whole process before and after the banning. And I would say, because we weren't there, I would definitely not sign on and say this is what definitely happened. But as a filmmaker, I want to believe that definitely there was that, and we actually saw it. You know, this makes me very riled up. I was watching CNN the day the president was on one of the shows. I was actually in the house. I think it was around mid-morning. Late breakfast or something, and I sat to watch that interview. And I remember a couple of days before, KFCB, or at least we'd had word that they were very okay and excited about the film. But the moment the president said certain issues were non-issue in Kenya, the flip happened overnight, you know? So that, and I would definitely circle that as one of the points of double speak. All this to say, definitely from either side, this could be alleged, but either way, as a filmmaker, I'd feel heartbroken, because at the end of the day, had it just been classified, and honestly speaking, everyone who watched Rafiki for that 1 week did not decide to change their sexual bias after that. They want, like, from now on, I'm this and this and that. So,
fair enough. Mildred,
Yes.
if the body wants to classify, if it wants to limit what Kenyans consume, and films, just as many other fronts, often shape people's idea, inform what to do and what not to do, shouldn't there be a regulation then that determines what Kenyans consume?
Well, I was thinking about that, and I was like, do they watch all these Hollywood films that are being screened for us, even Bollywood films? Then they should also classify and rate those ones, because they seem to be everywhere in the movie places. I mean, honestly, there are some series that are out there that people are watching that I would say, gosh, is this porn or is this like an actual series? If they're going to, this is what I'm going to say. If you're going to rate and classify ours, then do the same for the content that's coming from outside. Because I think there's a lot far worse that's happening there than is happening here. So I'm just saying.
And in your own opinion, why do you think they will be more interested in rating locally made content than internationally made content that finds itself to the same market?
I think it's For me, I'd say I think it's a fear thing. If you can control what people consume, then you can control them. So I think it's an issue of control. I don't think they're interested in what does this mean for the industry or how are we helping the creative. As far as I can see, these are just, they're curtailing any progress, any growth, any space for dialogue that could actually help us come to an agreement. I honestly feel like we can come to an agreement, but I think it's more of a control issue. And I don't know why they are so adamant on controlling content, because people will watch what they want to watch.
Martin, lately there has been a surge on the talk of the creative economy, be it from the government's drive or even from the global trends of how things are. What kind of an advantage does the creative economy pose in as far as shaping talents is concerned?
It all comes back to, I'll always go back to this. It all comes back to owning our stories and owning the content that we create, because there could be a difference in the two. What I mean is, the moment we own our stories, then we can tell our stories. The moment we tell our stories, be it in any format now, because we are talking of the creative economy, then it means this then becomes a platform to create a lot of people. And the moment we do that, then we can do cultural changes or cultural shifts with that power in hand. So yes, there'd be an upsurge in the audience reacting to what we are doing, and in so doing we start a discussion on all these things. What is a Kenyan voice, what is a Kenyan touch on music, what are Kenyan stories, and all this. That way we'd have that, there's growth in that. What can we do?
Do you foresee this having an impact in the country's economy?
Definitely.
Yes, definitely.
In what sense?
I wouldn't say I have the actual facts for it, but I have been to a forum where they said even with all these measures to curtail what we are doing, we bring in a good percentage, maybe less than 10, but a good percentage. This means that had we had any support, then we definitely bring in more. Lots of money from all these platforms of selling every kind of content that we are creating. And apart from that, man, creative economy is so wide from what we are doing in the theaters to what we are doing in the music industry. As long as it's an idea with a modicum of creativity, then it becomes part of the creative economy, from fashion to everything. So all that considered, those are a lot of jobs. That's a lot of money in and out, either way.
Yeah, and I think especially for young people, because our population is largely of young people, and we are getting into a space where employment is hard to come by, and this is the place that if we could tap into, because there's so much creativity. If you just watch Saturday shows everywhere, there's a group dancing or doing something. There's a lot of potential there also for graduates who are now, not having jobs, to actually have something to do. We can't keep on establishing colleges and universities and having journalism and film, and then after they are done, there's nowhere for them to go. It doesn't make sense. So I definitely think growing jobs for people, which translates to more money, which means also, and I would like to say, Nairobi should not be the hub where everything happens. I think other counties also have young people who have ideas. If we could just, master that energy and have like a policy that works, so that we don't have an influx of people coming into Nairobi, but maximize where they are, there's a lot of potential to also grow the counties, so that we also, decongest Nairobi.
And talking of counties, Machakos County has the Machawood.
Yes.
Narok, I think, has a film festival. What kind of an importance, what is the significance, rather, of such film festivals based in counties?
Based in counties. Well, I would say for the winners, there's always the check, which is good. I'm yet
but overall to the film industry?
Overall, first of all, it would be good for tourism. You get to know how other counties look like, places to visit. I think it's for them, it's also like it's a win-win situation. Second of all, you're also, if you can attract lots of filmmakers to come to where you are, give them favorable conditions to work in, I think it can only, that goodwill, that that manpower, and it's also an exchange of skills. Because, for example, when we go to Machawood, you're definitely going to have to work with people from there. And when you're working with people from there, there's an exchange of skills. You know, I need them, they need me. It has the potential to also grow into kind of like a mentorship or exchange program. There's a lot of good that can come from it.
And can this, Martin, at the end be translating to the Kenyan story that we talked of, that now we have counties stories?
Why not? Definitely. All these different places have a big number of stories to tell, like from that direction. And counties opening up for filmmakers means the different stories there can be told, one, like I said, from the backdrops of their physical locations, but also from the people who live there. So yes, that could maybe help us go in that direction.
We'll talk of the money involved and how easy or difficult it is to get to the film industry. But now I understand we need to take a short break here on Newsroom. Remember, we are talking of the status and the state of the film industry in Kenya. We'll be back with this discussion after this break.
Visa vingi vya ukosefu wa kazi vimewalazimu watu wengi kujitosa katika hustle mbalimbali. Hapa katika Hustle Mashinani tunatambua bidii yako, ubunifu wako na kuikubali kazi yako.
Nafanya hustle ya kuuza chapati na maybe weekends huwa na hustle na kushuka watu nywele.
Hudi ni neighbor wangu. Hata hiyo kazi anafanya inamsaidia kulipa nyumba.
Ungana nami Magdalene Wanjiko kila siku ya Jumamosi saa 2:30 hapa TV47, macho na sauti yetu.
Dunia ni duara na yote yanayofungana hufunguka.
Kila kukicha mapya yanasawazisha jana na ya leo.
Bila shaka hatuwezi kubadili muundo wa maisha yako, lakini hakikisho letu kwako ni kwamba tutahakikisha asubuhi yako inaanza katika mpigo uliobomba zaidi.
Tunarauka nawe kwa uchambuzi wa kina wa taarifa mbalimbali.
Tutaangazia kaunti mbalimbali moja baada ya nyingine.
Mazungumzo na majadiliano yanayokujenga wewe nafsi yako.
Hatutasahau burudani, Jumatatu hadi Ijumaa.
Uhuru, sheria na haki ni vipengee muhimu katika maisha ya kila siku.
Na iwapo serikali itafanikiwa katika makuzi ya jamii iliyo na mwelekeo, basi sharti sheria hizo zifuatwe.
Na kwa sababu sheria ni msumeno kukata mbele na nyuma, ni vyema kufahamu tungo hizi.
Siku zote jambo usilolijua ni kama usiku wa giza.
Ungana nami Clifford Ndubi.
Nami Andrine Kilemi.
Kila siku ya Jumatatu saa 1 jioni tukidonoa na kuchanganua sheria hizi
zinazotudhibiti.
Welcome back to Newsroom, and in case you are just joining us now, we are not talking matters media, but a topic that is closely, an industry that is closely as well related to the media, and the film industry, and the topic of discussion this morning being the state of film industry in Kenya. In case you are just joining us now, you can be part of this discussion. Our social media platforms will shortly appear on your screen, plus call in using the number that is on your screen as well. Let's get back to this discussion. My guests, just a reintroduction, Mildred Sakina and Martin Kigondu, both filmmakers. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for patiently as well being here this morning. When we talk of the film industry, there is largely a perception of it being a high-end film, a high-end industry, in the sense that due to the display, perhaps, of the cars that we see in the films, of the personalities that we see, of the locations at which those films are, the films are filmed, there seems to be a sense of high-end in film. How is your difficulty? Is it to get to filming or even film?
Put everything together. It depends on the script. Definitely, that is the start, because you could have as simple a film as you want. You could have one location for a short, probably, as opposed to a feature, which is a longer format. But because now that image we have is because of Hollywood. Yeah, Nigerians started with the rural area kind of thing. Then with time they went to these mansions and these gates. No wonder everyone has those gates now. So a film,
which is a flashy
lifestyle.
Yes,
yeah.
yes.
So it could be as expensive and as big as a script demands. It all depends on the script. Phone booth, one location, very simple shooting. It all depends on the script. That's where I'll maybe start by answering that from,
Mildred, more than the script?
More than the script. Also now the back end of things. Now when you're talking about pre-production and the production, sometimes you don't have the budget for those things. So it's a lot of calling in favors. You have a friend who has a nice Mercedes, can we borrow it? You have somebody your uncle who has a nice house. Because honestly, if you start spending on locations and what I call props, you'll exhaust your budget. So, you know, we are trying to create a false reality. So I hope nobody out there is like, wow, film must be all, no. After the shoot is done, we're like, okay, thanks. And maybe we give you $500 a G for fuel just to say thank you. So really, it's back to what he said. It can be as expensive and as flashy as you want it to be, but then there are also people who can create what you don't have. They know the people that they can call. If you have a proper budget, yes, you can actually get the kinds of prime locations that you want. But a lot of it, we are playing around with reality.
Fair enough. Martin, in conclusion of your response, will it be fair to say that all what we see is a product of script, not necessarily a reality?
Yeah, exactly what she said. It's a perception we create, but in regard to the script. Yes, so it's art is there's a lot of lying. There's a lot of lying in.
And does that lie influence how people think, behave, and conduct themselves? When, for instance, in a film you see someone killing another for love, that seemingly is a tradition that has unfortunately been picked up as well.
Okay, maybe lying wasn't the best word, because lying then comes with a connotation of morality to it. Yeah, so it's far from that. Film is a lot of how do I put it? Maybe lying was the best word. A lot of taking the shorter way out. Yeah, so for instance, we could cut from, it's all about controlling images. So for instance, you've given the example of maybe killing on screen. Yeah, it doesn't have to be as that. It could be a close-up of a knife. Then the next thing you see is someone whose hand has been ripped off. It doesn't mean the knife actually cut him off. It's just the arrangement of the images in the edit. So no wonder I said it's a lot of lying. We play around with
to
images.
You, it's easy to explain the technicalities involved in this arrangement. Yeah. To an audience who is watching this, they may develop a pattern that, for instance, is as violent as the description that you just gave. Do you, as filmmakers, have the thought of in mind having the audience as well, that whatever I say, whatever I write in this script may actually be a reality in someone's life, however bad it may be?
Well, that's the risk you have to take, right? There's this series called, 13 Reasons Why, and it's about a teenager who committed suicide, and so every episode shows like the reasons why she committed suicide. And when I did some reading on that is, you know, the whole series was not supposed to say, yes, suicide is good. No, it was supposed to say, if you have a problem, talk to somebody, you don't have to take your life. But what happened is, and they said more boys than girls ended up committing suicide after watching that series. It's a risk that I guess as a filmmaker, of course you're conscious about, like, I'm telling a story, but you kind of can't control the audience member who will watch it. I was just here to tell a story and to be truthful to the story as much as I can. How that person translates that content into their daily life really is upon them. So
shouldn't there be a sense of responsibility on the filmmaker that your content may be used otherwise against the intention probably that you had?
That could also be rephrased to be, shouldn't there be a responsibility to telling stories? The difference between us and plants and maybe animals is we tell stories. Yeah? Had cows been able to sit and tell stories, they would probably be, as the cow race, be very far, but they can't. Human beings are the only ones who tell stories. We've told stories about creation. We've told stories as to reason why we are here. It's the only thing that is consistent from generation to generation. It's also the only thing that is common everywhere. Storytelling.
And Martin, I'm not doubting whether we have the capacity to tell stories. What I'm questioning is the impact of these stories on people's lives.
And that is what I was going to answer. Then it comes to a point where we are where we are because of the stories we've known, meaning because we are a good product, most of us hopefully, is because we've also been exposed to good stories. There might be stories where a few questions might be asked, but there are lots of stories about people who worked hard and became people. There are lots of stories of people who survived diseases. So we are only looking at it from the darker angle, but there is a lot of positive energy in filmmaking and the end products of
what many at times override the positive stories is that we are being selective, which I agree with you, that we're being selective on the negative because that is what has the consequences.
Well, for me, as a filmmaker, I'm always conscious about what I want this story to portray, what I want it to tell, and I am aware that that might not be the process for everybody else. So for me, I speak about like everything that I put out has a message, and hopefully, you know, prompts you to think otherwise. But not every filmmaker does that, and at the end of the day, honestly, people are responsible for their actions. I know it's terrible, it's a cop-out, but really the choices you make, will you go to a court of law and say, yeah, because I watched that, then I felt like killing that person? We're responsible for our own actions, that's what I'll say.
Fair enough, let's leave that at that point. Let's talk of the payment models. Do we even have a red card in the Kenyan film scene?
There is one that I saw that was put out years ago by the Kenya Actors Guild. But how many producers follow that? Very, very few, very negligible. And maybe this could be ignorance. Maybe there are producers out there who don't know about this rates, genuinely don't know and are not looking for it. B, it could be there's no follow-up to find out whether these people are being paid as they should be. That follow-up work should be the work of the guild, like to be on set and to make sure that the actors are getting treated properly, to make sure that they get what they're actually worth. Again, let me say, growing pains. The enforcing of it
is a challenge.
Yes.
It also comes back to the budget of the production. Yeah. So, for instance, I came across the red card as soon as it was put together by the guild. Now, looking at it from a guy who just wants to create and is excited about the process of creating, I would also, then the whole thing begs the question of where will we get the money to pay these guys the amount they want us to, yeah? And for me, it's a really awkward place because I am an actor as much as I also produce and I also direct. So it puts me in a very awkward position. So it's all on the budget of production. So had we as producers and creators, are we pulling from a bigger place?
Yeah.
Then definitely the actors can be paid as much as they deserve, and they deserve a lot.
I'm talking of payments. What criteria is used to judge how much one should be paid?
So there's usually the lead actor, the principal actor, the person who, you know, is probably in all episodes of the stories about them. Then there's the supporting role. So you're probably, I don't know how to explain supporting role other than you're there to support the character. You might not be there through all the episodes, but you're an important character in the story, but not as
important as the first character.
As the lead.
Just say it.
Yes. And then there's a featured extra. A featured extra is somebody who can come on set and you have lines, and maybe you're featured, maybe not just one episode, maybe 2 or 3 episodes. And then now there's the extras, who are also called background actors. They could be the people in a restaurant just sitting or talking or whatever, you know, they're just there to populate the space. So those are the criterias for that determine who gets paid what.
Martin, more than the role, there's the question of often the stardom. Does that also shape how one is paid?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, if we are talking, I could definitely give the example of Hollywood. Yeah. So if Martin is pushed forward as a potential for a lead role, he probably wouldn't be paid the same as Will Smith playing the same role, because with Will Smith comes more eyeballs and recognition for the film. Some people just go to watch a particular film because of a person who's in it. Yeah. So had that role been played by someone different, then a different reaction would have been there. In fact, some films will take advantage of that. They'll put a popular artist who's probably not the most fit for that role, just to start to have the people riled up and go to watch that film and say something about it. It definitely does. Yeah. Will we get there where we can also place faces there just to get the people there in the audience, to have as many people sitting to watch the films? Yes, we will. Yes, we will, because we are having more and more actors come out and also be recognized internationally.
with the presence of alternative platforms of content sharing, gone are the days when few filmmakers were the denominators of the industry. They are the ones who are deciding. With these all other platforms' presence, how creative, how wild can a filmmaker, let me use the language of filmmakers, how wild can a filmmaker go in as far as creating a content is concerned?
Well, the world being now where you can, because like you said, a few years back, you'd only create something knowing this would be watched locally. Now you can even create a film without the interest of wanting to show it here, because you know I'm pushing this for this particular festival, because this particular festival wants this type of story, so I'll push for that. Whether people here watch it or not, I at least got what I wanted out of the festival. So how it's limitless. You can create as big or small as you want. That's what I'll answer. It's quite open now.
Yeah, but I'd also say with that, for example, YouTube now has a, I see that when you scroll, they have please be respectful when you're giving your comments, community guidelines, and I did read that they were also pulling down certain channels. For example, if say an advertiser says, this content does not correspond to my brand, so I can't endorse this anymore. So YouTube also actually has now those filters where you're like, yeah, if you're going to put that, you can put it, but you're not going to make money out of it, monetization. So I like he said, creativity is limitless. However, if you want to make money, I think you have to be very strategic about how you do it. There's money to be made, obviously. As we can see, there are YouTubers. Maybe one of us knows a YouTuber. One out of every 5 of us probably knows a YouTuber who is making money. So there's a lot of potential for growth. Yeah, and creativity really is limitless.
I understand we still have 10 minutes to go, but for the last 1 hour, if not more, we have talked of the film industry in Kenya. You've pointed to the challenges, you've pointed to the ills, the good, the bad of it. If one was to challenge you to paint a picture of an ideal Kenyan film industry, what will it be?
A lot of people sitting in the cinemas and weeks and months of people still going to watch one particular film, and not just one at the same time, another is being launched and another. So an ideal film industry for me would be a bigger number of our audience paying for actual tickets, subscribing to the actual channels and buying this content, and most of all enjoying it. But an ideal one would also mean lots of different genres, not just comedy, but a lot more. An ideal one would then see children have their content considered, adults of a certain age have their content considered, and all these people are showing up and buying. An ideal film industry would also have support from the governance of a state, from the different boards that there are, and a mutual understanding of coming together to create a bigger platform for filmmakers, and most of all for an audience, not just locally but also internationally. Yeah, that would be ideal for me.
Yeah, what would be ideal for me is to see people paid what they're worth, especially actors. It's so disheartening to see somebody on a billboard and then to learn from them that either they didn't get paid or they didn't get paid what was quoted, or they're still waiting.
Despite the audience having a perception that you are well paid?
Yes, there are a lot of actors walking around broke. You know, they have to look good because of everybody else. You know, you're taking an Uber because you have a reputation, but you don't have money in the bank. So for me, an ideal industry would be not just cast, that is the actors being paid what they're worth, but also crew, to make this a sustainable way of living, to not have to have side hustles to be able to do this, to do the thing that you love. It would also be, for me, a dream. You see how we say, oh my gosh, Denzel Washington is so cool, I want to be like him. I want to hear people say, man, I think Nick Mutuma is such a good actor, because you're seeing a lot of his work. Like an ideal industry for me would be where we stop idolizing and stop comparing and start focusing on our industry. And for me also is to have support, funding. I'm getting to a space where I'm like, I can't believe that we have to make good films, it has to come from foreign funds, while we have money here, we have the investment here. So for me, an ideal film industry also would be, especially, I have a passion for young people. It's where young people can feel like their dreams can come true here. You don't have to go to South Africa, you don't have to go to States, you don't have to go to the UK for your dreams to happen here. So, yeah.
The narrative for the longest time when you talk of education, let's flip sides for a short minute, is go to school, get a degree, you'll get a job. But where do you even start convincing a parent to send their kid to a film school?
You could start it in the process of them not even having cleared high school. Start it in primary. I know the KFCB is part of supporting the drama festivals. Yeah, my only comment to that is always, had Lupita Nyong'o been in the drama festivals, she probably wouldn't have been Lupita Nyong'o. So it's probably the way we package that with the festivals and how we dramatize and what we push for from the adjudicators, from the norm of acting, to now translating that into good screen acting, which is very different from what we do at the festivals. So yes, there is a platform now through the drama festivals, but schools can also venture into that by themselves, with their little clubs of drama and speech and drama, or even filmmakers, young filmmakers. They can start as young as because kids have stories to tell, and there are lots of stories that could be told about children, even for an adult audience. So yes, we don't have to even wait for film school after they declare high school or after they're done with their undergrad or something. They can start as young as possible.
And for a parent who is operating within a culture that is guided by the philosophy of getting to school, getting a degree, how do you convince such a parent? As a filmmaker, how would you convince a parent who has a child as talented as possible to venture into film?
Well, I am one of those children who ventured into film, and here I am today. So I know the fear that parents have is, gosh, you're going to end up being broke, and then you will not make anything of yourself. I think also as a society, we have to start esteeming people who are doing good, honest work, and who have like a track record of putting out good work, to make them see that, yes, they might have to struggle a bit more than in other industries, but at the end of the day, I think as a parent, you want your child to be, somebody good. And if this is what they love, and you can see an actual example of, okay, there's this person, you've seen them on TV, okay, they are not starving, they are taking their children to school, they have a car, like actually, putting the spotlight on good examples, I think that will definitely.
Good examples from the film industry?
Yeah, good examples from the
film
industry.
Talk of Hollywood, Bollywood, Nollywood, I think even in South Africa, when you talk of those hoods, you talk equally of schools that are exclusively film schools. Does the absence of an exclusively film school contribute to how the industry is as of now?
Had there been more of those around, that would greatly help. Are there none? Definitely there are few.
But the few that are there, they're teaching media, then film as...
No, there are actually some.
Who teach exclusively film?
Yeah. I don't want to advertise, but there are some. All I know is in the universities, as much as they'll say they'll cover that, it doesn't go as deeply. But there are some schools. I've done a couple of projects through them who just focus on that. In fact, some of the best cinematographers I know came from film schools locally. So there are a couple. There are not many. There are probably not even more than 10, but there are a couple here.
And what kind of a significance will that, as we finalize, what kind of a significance will that have in strengthening the film schools?
Well, first of all, I think, so again, I'm not going to mention names. There is a certain school that is known for churning out great people in journalism and media. They're very good at theory, but not very good at practical. And then there's this school that is very good at practical, but not good in theory. There is a disconnect of, and maybe this is like a larger education system problem, a lot of theory, not enough practical work. So I think if we had more schools that specialized in balancing that out, it really would, the quality of work that we see put out even on our local channels and films would greatly improve.
Fair enough, I understand now. We still have 2 minutes, 3 minutes. We'll get back to this discussion. But first, let's cross over to Silver Spring, where I understand the Kenya Union of Workers is currently addressing the media. This is in relation to delayed payment generating, the genesis of it being the standoff between the Division of Revenue Bill 2019. Let's listen into that.
Is that the Council of Governors, by a decision of majority, although some are being more logical, they understand the case currently playing out in the country. Most of them, by a decision of majority, say we are not going for money as currently provided by the National Treasury, because they think it is below the negotiated amount by 19 billion or so, what they call the Division of Revenue Bill. The purpose of addressing the public is to say, first, we are not a party to that dispute. If they are in combat with the national government, that's another matter. We wish both parties luck. But we are not a subject to that. And we are saying you cannot make a recurrent payment in the nature of salaries, for example, to be subject to that kind of dispute. It's not acceptable. It's illegal, even in the meaning of the law. The first thing you will do before you count on your profits, your surpluses and so on, is to pay salaries and wages. First, primary thing. The moment you have given somebody a letter in the name of a contract of employment, you must pay his salaries. It's fundamental. You can go without any other thing, but you cannot go without paying salaries. This basic provision is being ignored, or is being attempted to be ignored. There is an attempt to ignore it and try to bring us into the field of combat, make us players also, party to the dispute that we are not, party to a dispute that we have no direct interest in. We are not even competent to discuss that as employees, as workers. Ours is, there is a letter of employment, there is a contract of employment. That is due to us. This is not negotiable. On behalf of my colleagues, and we said any attempt at playing us around or playing us against the national government, ours is, the employer is the county government as established law, and they are the ones who are under obligation to pay salaries. That salary must be paid. Those salaries must be paid. So this is the position we are taking. We are addressing and put them on the notice for the last time. And there is a time limit. Is mischief at play here? Trying to abdicate, run away from their responsibility by saying, you know, we will have paid you, but the national government has not given us enough money. From what we know, is not there is so much money, enough for salaries and many other payments that they will make. Perhaps if there is a deficit, perhaps it's relating to the many contracts of roads, the many contracts of buildings, bridges, and so on and so forth, that has been so discredited under the audit report, under the audit reports at the national level, as you know. So don't drive us there. The period is over. We gave them about a week last time to make meaningful progress.
Well, those are representatives from the Kenya Union of Workers. We'll be taking you back there in our subsequent bulletins. Our reporter Joash Onsare is following up on that as well story. Remember, that is as a result of the Division of Labor Revenue Bill, the delayed payment. County workers now demanding that they be paid. Still have 1 minute, if not 2, to finalize. Mildred, let me give you the second last chance. Or Martin, as they say.
Ladies first, maybe.
Yes. For someone who is watching us this morning and is interested in film, what will you tell them?
I would tell them do it out of passion for storytelling, then the money will follow. But if you start with passion, then everything else will make sense as you go. At the end of it, at the end of your life as a phenomenal filmmaker or storyteller, many years later, may it be that you're more happier about the stories you told than even the money that you made. So yes, jump in for the passion.
Mildred,
wow.
30 seconds.
What do you say after that? I'd like to say that it's not completely hopeless. I'm an example, he's an example, it can work. And what I'm doing to give back is I run workshops, they're called the Class Act Workshops. So you can follow us on Instagram and on Facebook. We hold workshops for actors, quarterly, I think. Yeah, so the next one will be in September. So we want to equip you with life skills, but also with acting skills, and also with community, it's mentorship, and in the larger scale, it will be welfare. So there is hope. This is an industry that I love and that I've put myself as an example that, you know, even if it won't happen in my time, I want to make it better for the next person who might be watching.
And
So,
what
yeah.
better way to end than at a point of hope? Mildred Sakina, Martin Kigondu. Ladies and gentlemen, many thanks for making time for us this morning. Well, that brings us to the end of today's edition of Newsroom, a break from the media, nonetheless, a look into the film industry. Thanks for watching. Bye for now. Paul Kirobi is up next with Matukio Nyanjani. Stay tuned.